Stalker 2 can be quite challenging starting out, so after 2 playthroughs and well over 100 hours on the clock over the past few weeks, just so you know I've done my best to look at this thoroughly, I want to share with you some of what I believe are really useful tips for having a strong start. Now I steer clear of any storyline spoilers, you should get to enjoy that all by yourself. I did make this guide to have a logical sequence so you don't lose a lot of time needlessly running around. So starting with weapons and specifically shotguns, because a lot of enemies tend to get in your face and shotguns have a huge damage output in this game compared to the other early game weapons, which makes them perfect for taking out mutants as they come rushing in. First you want to get yourself a so-called boomstick, which is the simplest shotgun in the game but still very effective. Now as you can see here, you can take care of dogs with one hit and even bloodsuckers can be dealt with quite easily. You have a good chance of looting one from bandits in the lesser zone, and if you're really just starting out, the post office location lets you loot one from one of the men attacking the house. I have a tip for an even better shotgun as well, but we'll come to that later on in this guide. If you pick up the side mission at the post office, then this ties in nicely with our next step, because if you want to take a more stealthy approach, Stalker 2 contains a modest selection of weapon attachments, and the very best early game tip for this is finding a suppressor we can attach to our pistol. When you manage to kill an enemy with a clean headshot, you'll remain undetected, which is a great way to take down a few enemies with little effort and save your ammo and medkit reserves for other situations. You can find a pistol suppressor at the border house location, which is just northeast of the post office, and it'll be on the upper floor of the factory building in the blue storage box. All you need to do is attach it and you're good to go. Just be aware that even though you have a suppressor, this won't enable some sort of Solid Snake or Sam Fisher kind of playstyle where you can cut through 30 enemies unnoticed. And I do hope that that remark or that comparison doesn't make me sound old. Anyways, it's still a very effective weapon in different situations, and this pistol is still going to be a reliable sidearm for the rest of the game. Suits that can be found later on in the game will have an integrated mask, but early on you can still wear a separate one and it'll provide some added protection. The easiest and quickest way to get one is by going over to the cowsheds location, which is just north of the boiler house, and the shed on the right with the caved in roof section on the south side is where you'll find the stash that has a so-called Optician Gas Mask. Now you might have some questions by now about gear in general, making money, etc. So let's go over some of the essentials. After discovering the small settlement of Silesia, you'll come across your first trader and technician. And these professions pretty much represent the game's entire economy aspect, allowing you to sell and purchase goods, as well as repair and enhance your gear using the game's in-game currency called coupons. Because when you fire weapons and your suit takes damage during combat, they degrade, as you can tell by the durability meter and by these yellow and red broken shield icon indicators. Suits will be less effective in providing protection, and weapons, once they have that red icon, will start to jam in the middle of combat. So, what to do with weapons that have started to degrade? When you talk to a technician, he'll be able to repair your gear at a cost. The more advanced and enhanced your gear, the higher the repair cost. And there's no real point in repairing gear before you sell it, because the selling price will still be less than what you spent on repairs. So I recommend you only repair the gear that you actually use, which can also be enhanced to improve its performance. You can do this with a technician as well, and in Silesia he's located here in this small garage. As you progress in the game, you'll discover several other settlements that may or may not house a technician. And if it does, then you can recognize his whereabouts on your compass on the top of your screen by the wrench icon. You can improve your gear using these upgrade points, and some are more worthwhile than others. And I do recommend not upgrading your early gear and save up for some of the more advanced ones you'll come across, so more advanced weapons and more advanced wearables. Apart, by the way, from Skiff's pistol, which is a really good sidearm throughout the rest of the game. Now in the end, it's up to you to determine how much you want to spend on enhancing your gear. Just remember that the more that you do, the higher the repair cost will be based on the number of enhancements. So I don't recommend spending all your coupons on upgrades. Certain upgrades on weapons make a marginal difference, but you should definitely get the ones reducing weight or adding an extra slot to carry around artifacts. Which brings me to an important topic, and that's saving and making money. And the cost of living for an up-and-coming stalker is high, and the easiest way, at least early on, to make some money is, without resorting to glitches or mods, is by selling weapons which you can loot from defeated enemies. Now the rule of thumb here is the better the condition of the weapon, the more coupons you will get for it. Also, weapons in bad condition, so the ones that have that red broken shield icon, cannot be sold to traders, with one exception, but that's irrelevant for now because it's later on in the game that you'll encounter that trader. You have to spend a good amount of hours in the game, so you can drop those weapons from your inventory, or if you really want to hold on to them, you can put them in your private storage box. But before you do, don't forget to unload their ammo, which is a great savings tip, so you don't have to spend coupons buying ammo from vendors. The good news is that this can be combined with another method for making money, which is hunting for artifacts. The zone contains different types of anomalies, and the cool thing is some of these will contain an artifact, a somewhat physical object you can loot from the anomaly by pinpointing it using a special scanner, then getting very close to it so that it reveals itself and you can grab it. Now there are several locations in the starting area that you can visit to farm these artifacts, which you can then either use or sell. And there are 4 locations that you can combine in one easy route circling Zelicia, starting at Death Meadow, which is an area just northeast of Zelicia, and then heading south you have the cave near the old mill, which is where we're going to go in just a minute for another tip. And moving further south there's the Ribs location, and to the west there's the magnetic cave, which can be found right next to the boiler house where we just got our pistol suppressor from. Now each location has a certain set of artifacts tied to it from which you'll receive one at random. You won't be able to farm these locations over and over and over again non-stop, no, they have to reset. And this can happen either after an emission, but some anomalies are known to reset in between emissions, which explains why you might experience this sense of randomness when you're out hunting for artifacts. By the way, emissions are these deadly radiation storms that occur every now and then, and when it does you get a small warning in advance and you need to make sure you get to a proper building you can find some shelter at and wait it out. Now a barn doesn't cut it, and you need to get inside a brick wall building. I cannot stress this enough. It really cannot be any type of barn or I don't know, old house that's nearly falling apart. You need to get inside a proper brick wall building with a roof, and preferably not next to an open door. Now the game will also point you in the right direction with a waypoint on your compass, but it might just be far away from where you are, and if you are over encumbered, if you're too slow, then there's a quick tip. Make sure you make yourself as light and fast as possible, so drop whatever you can to get rid of excess weight and get running with the help of an energy drink. Now you can go back later on when the mission is over, when it's done, and pick everything back up. If you happen to be too slow, if you don't want to drop stuff, you will be taking damage once the mission is in full effect and before you reach that cover you're heading towards. Now you can delay, I've tried it, you can delay the inevitable for a short bit by using medkits, constantly stimming yourself. But eventually the damage will increase faster than you can pop a stim, so just focus on getting to safety. Now artifacts can be equipped by placing them in these slots in your suit, and each type of artifact has its own unique attributes, like boosting your endurance or bleeding resistance, but the drawback is that most of them give off gamma radiation, which is monitored by the meter at the bottom right. And once that thing starts to animate, it starts to pulse, you know you're being exposed to more radiation than you're protected against, and you'll see the bars will start to fill. And the higher the dose of radiation, the faster they'll fill up, the more health damage you take, and this will eventually kill you. Now luckily some suits have lead-lined containers, which means that whatever artifact you put in there, they won't damage you in terms of radiation, they won't give off radiation. So that's a very good thing to look at when you're picking up a suit and you're thinking about enhancing it. But fundamentally, a good way to prevent or mitigate taking damage is making sure you're wearing a suit that offers a decent amount of protection. I hope you're enjoying the video so far, and if that's a yes, give it a like for support, or when you have an unanswered question, let me know in a comment and I'll get you that answer as soon as possible. Alright, just a quick check before we move along to possibly save us some time. Make sure to progress the main mission until you get to Needle in the Haystack. That way you can combine a few things we're about to do at the same time. For this next piece of gear, we'll be making our way to the old mill found here on the map. Now go to this specific building with the barricaded entrance. Just demolish the barricade using your knife, and once inside, we'll find our suit in the back room on the table. As you can see, it's just a small step up stat-wise from the leather jacket we started out with, but it's called a debut suit for a reason, I suppose. Don't worry though, because I have another tip coming up about an even better suit in just a bit, but getting there requires some more playtime and some preparation. So make your way to this building here on the map, and inside you'll find this room with a tunnel entrance in it. Jump down, and when you get to this unfortunate guy, sprint forward and keep running until you reach these acid pits. Now here we can whip out our scanner and get ourselves an artifact, which you can either keep or sell, and I hope this gives you some basic idea of what hunting artifacts looks like out in the zone. I do, by the way, have a sneaky tip for you right at this point with the needle in the haystack mission. Right after you get the ward sensors, you get a choice to turn them over to either Richter or Captain Zotov. Now when you give them to Zotov, you're actually rewarded with another Optician Gas Mask and debut suit, which we just collected, so you can sell them for an extra profit as well. I have a few additional tips though before you really start exploring the rest of the zone, starting with an absolutely awesome location for improving your gear even further, and where you can loot so much that you have to start making decisions on what to leave behind. Getting the proper access to this location requires you to progress the main mission once again until we're sent to the S.T.A.L.K.E.R location to the southeast of Zalicia. Once inside the compound, head to the main building, and before you go downstairs to the basement though, check out this stock room, which has a lot of ammo in it, a lot of food, and it'll help you grow your stockpile. Now once you reach this tunnel after you head downstairs, you'll get a nice cutscene, and afterwards you can search the back room to find a high capacity magazine for Skiff's pistol on the desk, increasing your round capacity to 13, which is very nice. And when you exit into the tunnel again, take a double right, and here on the table you'll find the Explorer suit, providing even better protection than what you had with the debut suit. Now this is also a great farming location, because aside from all the mobs we've encountered during the mission, the groups at the compound and main building entrances will respawn reasonably fast, and you can loot a lot of rounds, grenades, food, and even some sellable weapons here until you get either bored or your inventory is full. Which brings us to that shotgun improvement I told you about earlier. So keep progressing the main mission until you leave the lesser zone, which happens pretty quickly after our visit to the sphere. Go to S.T.A.L.K.E.R, which is another settlement located in the garbage region, which is north of the lesser zone, where you'll find a trader named Huron, and he sells a pristine condition cracker shotgun, which is a tremendous improvement over the boomstick. And when you're lucky enough, you might loot it from bandits. It can even be in the lesser zone. I think I have a small clip. I'll try and find it, so it should be on your screen. You might have the chance to run into a patrol and they can actually be carrying one of those shotguns already, but it'll be in bad condition when you do. So then you have to pay coupons to repair it. Now why this shotgun instead of the boomstick? The cracker can fire 6 instead of 2 rounds, and despite its lower rate of fire, it has a higher penetration rating, meaning more damage will pass through a target's armor. And this is, at least in my opinion, one of the most important weapon stats in the game. Now the cracker will be able to carry you through combat against both mutants and humans a lot easier, which saves you rounds and medkits when you're exploring the rest of the zone. Which brings me to a few quick tips on exploration in general. Stalker 2 involves a lot of running, so before you venture further out into the zone, you need to think of inventory management. So empty out your inventory as much as possible, bring only a few small stacks of food, so 5 for 5 bread and sausages, 10 for 10 medkits and bandages, and only the ammo of the weapons you're actually using. So dump everything else in your private box, which is like a Minecraft ender chest. It has unlimited capacity and it's linked to the other private boxes you will find at other settlements. Also bring 10 to 20 energy drinks or water bottles so you can replenish your stamina and keep running, and this will save a lot of time over longer distances. And speaking of which, it's best to explore in broad daylight, so when you're at a settlement and right before you leave, Just take out your map and look at the time on the top right. Now if it's night or late in the evening, what I always do, I'll look for a bed and I take a nap, because this will fast forward time by a couple of hours, allowing you to skip having to walk around in pitch black conditions, because in this game human NPCs will still be able to see you as if they are wearing nods, and they'll shoot at you with surprising accuracy even when they're using a shotgun 50 meters away. So that's my final tip for exploration in general. And speaking of accuracy, if you want to have an AK with a scope early on, then I have a very to-the-point guide for that as well on your screen right about now. Now I love to talk to you guys about your experience with the game, so leave a comment with your thoughts on the game so far, and if this video is helpful to you in any way, then be sure to give it a like. Now when you're interested in more Stalker 2 content, then consider subscribing to the channel. It's free and I'd love to share that and other games with you as well. Now I appreciate you guys watching and I hope to see you next time here on the channel. Take care everyone and see you later.